I love very much what was said from Dimitri's workshop, that you created new words. I mean, you create a lot of new words. We use a lot of new words. And it's hard to do it in another language. I think that we should do this in our own language when we talk about the commons. This is a problem usually. But in whatever language we create new words, it's a good thing to do, because we cannot describe the depth of the concept of the commons with the old concepts and words. It's just impossible. So, and we realized this when we were doing our exercise, which, as I said at the beginning, I can offer some very conceptual workshop, and then if we have time, we try to put it into practice, and we think about a common arts festival, and it turned out to be pure conceptual and political discussion, and people didn't want to go for the break, so this was great. And we basically try to sharpen our rough ideas about the commons. So my first question was, please write down what is the commons. So participants, well, people there in the workshop wrote down what is the commons. And obviously the question is misleading. Because if you ask what is, philosophically, you kind of imply that something is existing out there. And if you ask what is the commons, you kind of ask for an object, a thing, something separated from you. So, and I was so lucky to deal with a really beautiful group, kind of an expert group on the commons, who obviously got me immediately and put the most amazing definitions there. And we started discussing of, if it's not something out there, but something that goes right through us, that has to do with how we build and rebuild, constantly rebuild our subjectivities. So if it is a social process, how we imagine and build our livelihoods, how we build our cities, how we act and put together, put something in common. We have a nice comunanza, a nice Italian term. Then obviously we go from a way of talking about the commons as a processual language, which is based on a very first idea, that is, you cannot think about the commons if you start thinking of the human being as an individual disconnected from others. So the starting point of our analysis basically is the Ubuntu idea. I am through you. My personal unfolding depends on your unfolding, etc. So that idea of social embeddedness, relationality, as kind of a starting point for a commons debate. And so we went through this, and obviously when you start talking about the commons as a social process, you need, as Peter Leinbo says, you need to use verbs instead of nouns. So like in English we have commoning. It's impossible to, for me, up to now it has been impossible to translate commoning into German. We had some nice Italian proposal, etc. So we need to create a new language in order to describe the world we want. Also, we were wondering ourselves, who is the subject of the commons? So who is the we? And we have in philosophical history, we have these, the commons belongs to everybody, or the commons belongs to nobody. And then you have that idea of, oh, if it belongs to everybody, nobody will take care of, and it will being destroyed. And if it belongs to nobody, same thing. So nobody will take care of, and it will erode. And we made it very clear that the subject of the commons, it can be a group, it can be a community, it can be a network. The common denominator is that it is always more than one people. It's even always more than two people, but again, we don't have a word for saying it's always more than two people. At least I don't know. Perhaps in other languages there is a word. So we were talking a little bit about the property regimes, and another thing is, second one, that usually, if you ask people what is the commons, they start coming up with, well, the forest and the water and this and that. And so you have the natural resources, and then you have the people talking about the digital commons. Not yet, not yet. Then you have the people talking about the digital commons. And, and then we said, well, in fact, it is a weird thing to talk natural commons here and digital commons there. Material commons here and immaterial commons there. In fact, this doesn't exist. It's purely artificial. And this, in a way, is a tragedy because the digital world kind of has a very own language and talk, and they have their conferences and their blogs and their networks. And the natural resource world is something very different, something the indigenous people, the forest commoners, etc. They don't talk the digital language, the digital commons language. So we need to find new words that makes very clear that three things. Each commons is based on natural resources, and nobody should forget about it. Each commons is a knowledge commons, and each commons is a social commons. So we need to create even new words and stop categorizing the commons and the digitals here and the materials there and the traditionals here and the moderns there. We need kind of to unify. And somebody said, actually, we need to campaign for the commons with that political clarity that it's about all together for a free, fair, and sustainable future. Free plus fair plus sustainable. So where is our thing? No, not yet. This very quick, very quick. Free is a very liberal idea, fair is a very socialist idea, and sustainable is a very green idea. So tell me, is there out there in the political party system any actor that conveys the three altogether? There isn't. That's why I agree with get rid of the parties, but it's not that easy. Okay, now this one. This is very... So yeah, they are doing it in the UK at the moment, exactly. So, and finally, there was the famous question of what about upstreaming? No. Upscaling, yeah. I don't like the word again because it's a bottom-up thing. It's a higher vertical thing, right? As if there was only one direction to grow, from top-down, vertical, or bottom-up. So, and we were searching for other metaphors to how can we expand the commons, so to say. And we were coming up with the rhizome, Gilles Deleuze, etc. And saying, just imagine, you have your housing commons, your agriculture commons, your open source machinery commons, your digital commons, your whatever commons, health commons, education commons, artists commons. Imagine you have all these communities, and you know how to provide a special service or product as a commons. And I can tell you, there's nothing in the world, in the corporate world, that does not have an already existing alternative as a commons. Nothing. In every field, being it transport, health, education, you have the alternatives. They are already there. What happens is that they are kind of disconnected. So imagine we connect them. Bop, 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 bop. That's the distributing idea, right? And this way, we can kind of fulfill our needs in a kind of, I call it meta-commons or federated commons. So this would be our system of meta-commons, but, and now it's Laura's turn, what next? It is not that easy kind of create that meta-commons because we felt like there was a lack of critical mass. Can you perhaps better explain the idea? What next?
No, I mean, I was asking, I mean, after, can you give me this? This discussion is like the way commons are created because we are unhappy the way the system works. So if they, Silke took the example of you have the housing company, the digital commons and whatever, we need a critical mass to have them cooperating with one another, but that won't be enough to reduce the system that creates dependency, for instance, from us to buying things in a supermarket or consuming certain kind of products that we do not like the way they are produced. So I was saying that the simple interconnection between the commons, the individual commonalities, won't be enough if there is not a consciousness to change certain rules, certain system. And these entities what I was saying, campaigning. Like, it's not just sharing. We need to campaign at a different level for changing how things are decided. For instance, let's make an example. We say, we work for cooperative housing together, or we work for digital, whatever that is. But this is dependent from the way like instruments are produced, apples, or not apples in terms of fruit, Mac computers, and here the materials of the housing are produced. So we just use the tools without questioning the means of production, the way how things are produced, then it's not enough. So commoning means not just sharing, but have a critical consciousness that has to be developed and valued within the system. Right, is that clear? But I'm sorry, just one thing for commoning. I always have some troubles in the reporting backs and on workshop, because workshops are very interactive. People ask questions. You feel that, you get very much into the topic. You really want to know more. And then when you come back in reporting, people are like, they're all like very serious, and you don't ask questions. So if you have questions in the way we report back, I think it's good to make it more lively.